The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Hi, welcome to the 150th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Florian Pfeiffer, who, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and who will be providing the neutral opinion today because he's in Switzerland. Sean, everyone's best friend. Greg from Rivet. And I'm founder and architect of Dragon Chain, Joe. Also, John is still lost in the tunnels of New York. So if you guys are visiting, help us out and maybe
send a search party in.
Yeah, send a search party in. But we'd like to have him back at some point. Quick update on the layer ownership tokens distribution.
I am said you got the wrong link.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, I hit here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy it real quick. Oh, you know what? Berg. I will.
If there were ever
a
string that would benefit from a mnemonic translation into some sort of readable phrase that was easy to type, it's these codes, man. It'd be so much easier if it's spelled
I don't know why
like a nonsense word.
Why did they do that, right? Let's see here. It ends in 58M, right? Sorry, doing this right here, but I think that it would be worthwhile. Yeah, it's the same one. Let's see here. Let me see. I'm going to send it to him again. And he's probably watching this too. So it looks like it's the same one. I don't know. I shared it directly from here. So
did you send it to Twitter?
No, I did not send it to Twitter. I sent it to his direct text message.
Oh, okay. Well, Lisa said she sent him on Twitter, but maybe she sent
that sounds very old.
I see. Yeah, maybe join last week's show. We rerun it. Anyway, the governance NFTs from last week. Every host gets 133 lot. Every topic contributor 83 lot. Last week's themes were nominated by, speaking of, I Am For I Am and Dayrox, who will receive 41 lot each. These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and most importantly, governance votes. The theme of this week is blockchain app store to challenge app store monopolies, nominated by I Am For I Am. So do you guys have anything to bring up before we go into the questions? Or, I
think this is an interesting subject because we talked about some interesting stuff before the show. And I think this subject actually dovetails nicely with respect to regional preferences in terms of availability of applications, right? The walled garden that Apple has serves a neat benefit in that it provides security, but we could have that without the walled garden with blockchain, and I think that's kind of one of the probably least conversational points on it, but one that bears noting. As we go into this, just food for thought for people.
Yep. Well, and I think on that, anything you get, how do I say this? Without work, you have to consider that it might not be, what is purported to be. That, it probably has helped, especially in the early days of mobile apps. People who aren't technical, let's just say. To make sure I was like, okay, I can download this and it's safe, right? And yet the restrictions involved in that and the things that you don't know what they are, not protecting you from or pretty big. There's a lot of stuff there. So, which
Well, I mean, and they would be super embarrassed by the top list if they let it be anything, because like, it'd be like 5 flavors of Pornhub, and then whatever the number 1 app is right now.
Yeah. Well, I will
Yeah,
say
yeah.
though. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, that's some reason why, or the model isn't like bad as is. The Apple, let's call it the Apple model, because again, it opened the floodgates. Without the iPhone and the App Store, smartphones probably wouldn't have broken through. I mean, Nokia, 15, 20 years ago, everybody had a Nokia. They probably all still exist since they're undestroyable, but those guys, they were a Finnish company, and they are now focused on making rubber boots. Why? Because they thought the touchscreen was fluid, but those guys, and apps and stuff like that won't take off. They will use their cell phone again, like a cell phone. Oh, were they wrong, right? So opening the floodgates, and that's something we do at Kanaloa. We break it down and simplify it to the most, so that Joe Schmo and Peter Miller, who are not experts but want to use the technology, can do so rather safely. But then there's the big but coming on. We are now at the stage where you are handcuffing developers. You are handcuffing, and therefore, in the next step, handcuffing your own ecosystem. Right. Because
we need a forcing function to break through.
I mean, now everybody has a smartphone. Now that wave is done. Now that money was made. What's the next step? And I think Apple kind of slept on that. I mean, Android opened the market relatively quickly, and stuff like this blockchain app solution is another step. And maybe Apple finds itself not like today or tomorrow, but in a Nokia similar situation by not making that next step and opening up, right?
Yeah. Well, and you could still have some semblance of the functionality, right? Like you could have a switch you flip in the settings that can be subject to parental controls if you want, that says allow sideload apps and app stores, right? And they could have had that switch in the product a long time ago. Basically, they could have turned Cydia into a thing you could add, so long as you turned on the capability, turned off the security setting, and that would solve the problem. Unfortunately, now we're faced with the situation where Apple's going to be targeted by a much more heavy-handed system of regulation that won't stop there, that won't leave it at that. So I think that's one of the reasons why we need blockchain to fill the void.
Regulation never stops. That's once the door is open, it's open.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that they all now run into issues with certain places like the EU and stuff like that, because that's the other part. If you are decentralized, or if you are like everybody can do something, yes, that brings a certain amount of risk, and yes, your user has it's. I compare it to the Wild West. It wasn't smart walking around unarmed with big gold sacks on you during that time, right? That wasn't a smart idea. So having Joe Schmo and Peter Miller, who don't know how to use it, be going in there willy-nilly, that's probably not the best idea. Yeah, but you have to have a user that knows a little bit what he's doing, and then that was a gold mine, right? Again,
well, and we should teach more of those users. We should raise more of those users up. It's possible to learn.
Let's make competent user instead of risking having, again, now you have monopoly laws and stuff like that. You have to mess with if you're Apple or Google or anybody else. And if you're decentralized and open, that's not going to happen, right? You're never going to have one player X that's so big, or you can intervene before that happens.
Right. Mass scale federation is the same thing as decentralization, essentially.
Yeah. And
education is
the other about federalization.
Same as in blockchain. Education is key, because if you try to fix stuff with your interface and just limit everything, people are still going to get scammed anyway. And you need them to understand. Yet when this happens, don't do this. Right? It's a very principled thing. So
it's the whole thing, outlawing the tool, doesn't fix the issue. It's like
Right,
teach the
right.
people how to use it properly, and then you make life hell for scammers. I mean,
Yep.
I had
Oh, yeah.
that personally when I got into the industry. I ran into one or two scammers that actually got me. I run into one or two that almost got me. And now, if somebody comes to me and tries it, it's like all my bells and whistles go off. And now I'm at the point where I have fun with it, right? Now
right.
I waste their time or try to get their money or stuff like
Right,
that.
and little stuff that makes regulators think that human beings will have no way to understand the thing because it has a complex name like homomorphic character, right? That's an easy concept to teach, but if you start with the word, it's scary, right? I don't
And
think
that's another
that
thing
being
that,
capable users is beyond humanity. I
and
really
that's
believe
another thing, but crypto is kind of guilty of that as well,
Yeah.
and the tech industry especially. So that I wonder how's that gonna that because that could be like a pitfall for that whole app system. Is we love new words. And we love to rename something and give it a different, more complex name so we sound and look smart in front of our clients. That's
Right, you need to
something
feel
we
important.
crypto developers love to do, right? The same treasury system has now the 15th new name, but if you look into the tech, it's still the same thing. They're doing still the same thing they were doing 2000.
I blame the marketers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the dev. That's a marketing
Like
thing.
good marketers could help solve the problem. They really could.
Absolutely, and that's
That's
maybe
why devs need to be marketers. Marketers need to be devs. That's how you help, because then you can actually explain it in a way that's fundamentally correct and it actually solves a
and
problem.
explainability ought to be a requirement for any marketing strategy.
Yes.
But to be good at both is difficult to wear both hats.
Oh yeah. And you get a lot of
Yeah,
flack
I mean,
for
you
it
would
too.
still have to
Yeah.
specialize, right?
either
Like I know how to code, I just don't do that for Rivet.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, by the way, there's so many. This is crypto, and there's so many things we could be using that are part of our toolkit. Um, for instance, and it blows my mind that no one's done this since. I mean, we were worried when we came out from Disney, because there were a lot of normies that were super interested, because first of all, blockchain was really hot, and the people who wanted to understand it were kind of drawn to us because we were a familiar group, and so they would come into our Slack at the time. I apologize, we had a Slack. They would come into our Slack, and we would, we went a full year before we commercialized, before we rolled out all of the stuff that is now. But all of the open source was there, like the systems all worked, and it was basically set up so we could understand what people needed, right? And we knew that there was going to be a lot of scammers, so we made sure right off the bat that we established a lot of educational things where people could ask questions and everything else. But where we said, look, if there's ever any announcement of any significance, it will be signed with this Bitcoin key, right? And so we published that. We put videos out on it. We actually even considered,
and you put it to use probably in the first post. You signed it as authentic.
Yeah. And we even showed people how do you verify the signature, and how do you do this, and so we did all that. And I can't tell you how many times, but people would come in middle of the night, Seattle time, so everybody knew the team was asleep. They'd come in, they would fake my account avatar, make sure it looked just like me in Slack. We even had Slack locked down as hard as you could, with full paid everything we could. We couldn't keep them from doing this. And they would, it's like they would announce there's a token sale. We're gonna whatever, and send money here, and it was always beautiful, because it would be like 4 a.m. or something, and someone from some other time zone would say, "That's not real. Joe would have signed that," right? And immediately it didn't go anywhere. Nobody lost any money. When we were the first ever to put a cryptographic signed message in a press release. And I didn't think that they would let us do it, but they did. And you can look it up. It's pretty cool. Because we wanted to make sure that, that people could verify that it was really us saying something. So,
and that's one of the really interesting powers of NFTs when you really think about it, right? Like one of the services that I love is Mirror XYZ. It's just a great writing platform, and you can essentially mint your article into an NFT, right?
Yes.
So writers can pass on license rights if they choose to, like if they put that in the language of their profile. Arguably, anyway, that they can create a contract that says once you have this, you have rights to republish in these capacities or whatever.
It's very cool to monetize content.
It's just to me, it's crazy that it hasn't gone bigger, and I think that's probably the fault of our industry for failing to communicate it properly.
Yeah. Well, I blame the people, because nobody wants to join a platform that there aren't enough people on, and therefore no one joins any platform except for fucking Zuckerberg.
True. You just described the cart before the horse, Joe. That's correct. I would also add to your point, Greg, that we have powers that control the wallets, shall we say, not the wallets, but the money system, that are going to work against us. And the scammers did not help. And some of the scammers, I think, were funded by the big state, deep state, whatever.
It was a great op, right? When you think about it, it distracts us all. We have to either address it to show that we care about it, or ignore it on principle and try to explain how we don't want the distraction getting in the way of the upside, because focusing on the downside is to the advantage of people who wish to keep you oppressed.
And then we were forked. The idea and concept from the original cypherpunks that this was a function to work towards liberty, and individual monetary sovereignty was lost, and that was a big fork that took place.
This hasn't happened
institutional. Come on, I want my number to be higher.
I saw a video 3-4 weeks ago, and I thought that when the ETFs got released, and it's like, wait a minute, this is the opposite of what we want. It's like, what is happening here?
Well, there's trade-offs, right? And there's one huge
it's all
upside
bad, Greg.
There's one huge upside to it you have to acknowledge, right? This upside is we now have very powerful 800-pound gorillas in the lobbying firms who are siding with generally not undermining the principle on which that they're basing their stupid ETF. Right?
Yeah, right.
So long as the ETF exists, we have BlackRock's lobby.
Those people are going to be lobbying. Make sure when you buy Bitcoin, make sure you buy it from Fidelity, because
I'm sure they're going to market that, but they won't be able to mandate it.
Not BlackRock. You want to buy from Fidelity. There's a difference.
Well, one of them might be a 1000x, and one of them might be 500x paper. I don't know which is which, but they're paper.
But,
so
but it goes. Let me back up here real quick. The reason I proposed this theme for the show today, and I'm grateful that it got voted up and in, is I was looking for the answer to this question, to this theme. I was looking for solutions. And so that's why I put it out there. So I'm going to probably be sitting back and listening to you all taking notes and coming back and rewatching this to get those ideas and solutions that you have.
Well, it's a great
I know there's stuff already out there, but I haven't explored it well enough to know if it's viable.
Right. And I have a lot of historical. I used to be an Android dev from way back, and Android and iOS, but it was always remarkable the difference between the two app stores, what you could get in versus not, what was possible in the OS even, and what wasn't in between iOS and Android. And the weirdest part to me was that Google had an opportunity to do something different, and instead they went parity on a 30% fee for payments. I don't know if it's still that, but I just remember that was so frustrating to me that it's great. I could get almost any app in the Android place. It was an app store. I can't remember what it was called before it was Play Store. But anyway, I was just always annoyed at that. And so we did put our app on a few different odd app stores back in the day. There were a bunch of Asian ones. There were some Chinese ones. And I think there are a lot more now. But anyway, should we go to questions? You guys want to go?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna refresh them on the live, and we will go down here. Let's see here. First, a question. Let's see here. Okay, so no jokes. I'm not going to put any restrictions on I am for I am answering his own question. But how can the free market break this app store monopoly, and what role will blockchain play in accomplishing this?
Shout out to my German Shepherd, by the way.
Yes. What's is it a boy or girl, and what's its name? Boy.
It's Buddy.
Buddy. That's a good
Buddy.
Name. Right on.
Right. So the free market can totally break this up. Once we have a truly sort of fully decentralized stack up and down, right? I think that's going to be a part of the key here, because ultimately the challenge is this, right? Another alternative app store distributed through a decentralized system that's uncensored is going to include some things that people will get angry about, that they will want to not exist. Sort of like one of the big reasons you never really got a sideload app store on Apple was the fact that cell phone companies wanted to bill you for using the wireless access point feature separately and extra. And you could write apps in other app stores that didn't have these policies that would circumvent that. Like I know this because I used one as I used my iPhone 5S as a base station for my Wi-Fi for a year, thanks to jailbreak, right? And it was probably not something that T-Mobile would have liked if they had found out about it, but they couldn't really detect it, and that's why Apple was supposed to enforce it, right?
Yeah.
I think these things are going to be
the other
killers to app stores, right? If we don't have the ability to truly decentralize all the way to the point where someone can't come point guns at it and tell it to change.
Yeah, that's one thing. And the other thing is there's censorship and community control is like it's this fine line. There's the principle of how can I say it? The principle of intolerance. That you have to be intolerant toward intolerance, otherwise intolerance takes over. And that's what killed all the Twitter alternatives. Yep. Because they came from this free speech point of view, platform point of view, which is great. I mean, tell me one person with two brain cells to rub together who has a problem with the concept of free speech. I mean, right. That's nobody can argue against that. Issue was It got basically taken over by radical right or radical left, it doesn't matter, but radical on the spectrum, the outest most side, because they couldn't go anywhere else, right? And
ideology-driven stupidity, basically.
Yeah, and now these are like hubs for these kind of opinions, with the result that nobody with a normal opinion or a normal wants to associate with that company or that platform anymore. Because if I have an account on, I don't know, something other than X, then this can be associated with either you are super right-leaning or you are super left-leaning, right? Even though it may say nothing about me, just because how the platform developed itself. And for an app store, this can be a huge issue, because again, if I'm a scammer or if I'm have ill intent, I can't get in the Apple Store at the moment because the restrictions are too big. Google, they probably will find me sooner or later, so I'm gonna try here for sure, right?
Yeah.
And if they get sifted everywhere, get sifted out everywhere else, but not there, then it starts accumulating there, and people look at the App Store and it's all, again, different flavors of porn and black market trading, and then it's all of a sudden, why does this exist, right? On the other hand, if you are too radical with censorship and with control and are too centralized, then you have the issue that you're a copy of Apple again, and you cannot compete in that market. That are always
and you're going to create like censorship in and of itself may, in a narrow view, solve one problem, right? because nobody likes Nazis. Nobody wants them to come back and take over the world because fascism sucks, and it led to genocide. But at the same time, like, how do you craft such a specific policy that no one can weaponize against just a disfavored ideology that may be actually pro freedom or pro human rights or pro something that we all want to see increase in the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a very
so
difficult.
It becomes a double-edged sword. And I feel like there's an automatic sort of point of slide that starts with one function of censorship being accessible for multiple, right? That ultimately means the censorship eats the whole world once it starts.
Oh yeah, I mean, we see that again. We see that on Twitter or X, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The screenshots I saw of people getting banned, or even better, the whole DALL-E and ChatGTP image creation fiasco they had. They wanted to be so politically correct that the machine did not paint any white people. And what was the first thing? What was the first thing people did?
Right.
They had black Nazis all over the internet because DALL-E was painting black people in Nazi uniforms. Right. So and that's wanting to signal a certain it's like, yeah, we are censoring everything and we are super pro X, Y, or Z. Fuck them up real good, stab them in the back real good. And for me as an outstanding outsider, it was funny to watch, but owning that company or working with that must have been horrible, because your own goodwill shot you in the foot so badly.
Right.
And
that's the nature of the Cobra effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that whoever does this centralized app store or this blockchain app store, that's an issue you have to face. That's something, and I think there's unfortunately no one solution for it. Otherwise, I think again, Apple and Google may be something like the modern version of the Illuminati or something, but they are not dumb. And if there was a bulletproof way to maximize profits by getting the most possible people on board, people would have done it already. So in my opinion, there's that one solution isn't possible. The skill now is finding the right niche, right?
I think they have maximized profit. I think the problem is that maximizing profit is taking money not from the people using the app store, but the people paying to infiltrate with, hey, because like you said, if you were that person with ill intent, and I the next question I'll cover this, but if you were that person with ill intent, there is already a way for you to get into the Apple App Store, and that is literally just paying Apple.
Guys,
I
have to take one issue with where we've got so far on the subject, and I think that there's probably a solution to this that involves fully decentralizing the infrastructure. Like if we had decentralized storage and decentralized web servers, right? This would be a different game altogether.
If but why
create an uncensorable side-loadable app store? Then Federation would solve the problem. The markets would then be free to generate as many different solutions as possible, and whoever came up with a good one would prevail. Right?
Doesn't that already exist? I mean, I could if I ever, and I no offense to anyone, if I were ever, I'm not going to even say it. If I had an iPhone, I could jailbreak it. I can go into my settings, set up developer settings, and make it so I can download APKs from anywhere. Right. Yeah. It's already decentralized. It's not convenient, right?
Right. You just need a Mac and Xcode, really, if you want to do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, that just get an Android and then not have to deal with anything of a dead guy's rules, right? So zombie Steve Jobs doesn't want me to do this, so I have to have a Mac also, and It's like, forget it, right? Anyway.
You're right, Joe. Yes, we could do that, but the majority of us are not going to jailbreak our phone or have that ability to do that or experience.
Right. There's a
And
threshold.
so therefore it's a small niche of the market. So the question of being the marketplace, how is the marketplace going to do it? It's got to be easy for people to be able to download another app, from a different
Or
location,
another app store,
an
even.
APK file, or have a different OS on the phone.
And the other thing is literally there's a threshold of friction there, right? It's like, if I want enough to install that app that I have to have a rooted phone for, I will do it, right? Even if I'm not technical. I know plenty of people who have wanted certain apps that did that.
Right. You
However,
can buy that
and-
service if you know the right people and you're not you're willing to risk a scam.
I learned to use a Python program with no interface because I wanted to use that program.
Yeah,
I
and see,
have
that's
nothing.
what's missing.
But
And the reason I actually wanted, and I voted on this episode this month, and I missed voting on it last month because I didn't recognize at first. It's like, oh, this is extremely important to blockchain, Web3, all our world, because this is, and we saw it with Den. We couldn't get Den into the damned. Well, we got it in the Apple App Store, but they kept asking for, and I think you even asked this in a later question, they kept asking for changes to it that didn't actually make sense. They were, assuming it was something else. It's some dude in an ivory tower in San Francisco, or maybe in South America, or
DC,
who knows
or
where this person
wherever.
was. Yeah, but this person kept us. It's like, no, you have to have this. It's like, we have that. It's here, and it's like, it didn't matter. And we kept having to do that, and it'll be a different person next time. And so we just said, fuck it, we're just not gonna have an app anymore, right?
Right. And now Den is very easy to load onto your home screen, by the way, as a progressive web app. If you happen to be an iPhone user like myself,
perfect,
and you still want an app.
It's not perfect though. It's like it could be better. It's just it's too hard for it to be better. And frankly, if there were a killer app, it would literally cause people to say, "Screw this! I'm not going to use it."
It would get some people. It would get some people for sure, right? Like, I'm not going to. I realize the trade-offs you make with the iPhone, and I take that trade-off.
You just want
because I like the hardware quality. I mean, before iPhone, I used Nokia's fancy line because I like the hardware quality.
Okay. I have to agree. I mean, that's the whole philosophy behind Kanaloa, is making it as simple as possible and the no-code solution. Because what I learned is I came into crypto rather late, end of 2018 or something like that. And within 2 years, like I say, 200 or 300 people came to me like, hey, I see you do this crypto thing. Can you help me with X, Y, or Z? It took me anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes to set up a Binance or Bybit or whatever centralized account, set up a MetaMask wallet, and explain the whole process, and then go to Uniswap or wherever it may, PancakeSwap or whatever, for them to buy certain coin XYZ. I've lose 95% of people's interest by step 3 or 4, because I can just call my banker and tell them buy X, Y, or Z. I pay a shit ton of fees for that. I get no returns. I probably get ripped off, but it's simple, right? And the iPhone, same thing, is I cannot do that, but it's simple and it works, right? And that's probably step 1. It's not, you can do it, make it more complicated down the line, but first it needs to be quote unquote idiot proof and simple to use. So
it should teach people its own tropes as it goes.
Right? That's
how much you have to simplify it.
It basically it has to take the user on a journey, and that's also that keeps you engaged. It's almost, you have to look at it almost like a video game.
Can I ask one thing? Because this question asked how can the free market break? Then I didn't hear anyone challenging the assertion that there is a free market involved.
That's the one thing. The big players have the most money, and the market is the freer. It's like communism. Yes, the market. Yes, everybody is the same, but some are saner. And
Yes.
this is the same thing. The market is free, but if I see that with Kanaloa. We run on a small budget, and marketing costs me a ton of money with rather limited returns. But if I would X10, X100 that marketing budget, we would talk
Right.
totally different ballgame. Or like
Right,
our
you can
biggest-
literally you can foist adoption on the planet with a big enough spend.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. And
I would-
that's so. And that's the other thing. If Google and Apple,
Assuming you've got
actually-
basic simplicity in place, right? Like if it's a
Oh
pain
yeah,
in the
yeah.
ass,
I mean, if you're super
no marketing campaign will get you
useless,
there.
then-
But
and that's the other
Sean.
thing. If Apple and Google get into that and see that and actually think this is a competition. I mean, if they think this is no competition, then that doesn't apply. But who doesn't say that they then start taking money into their hand and promoting their own brand to minimize the damage coming from that? And then you need a lot, even if you have the better idea, the better product, and are objectively the better people. If the other guy is louder in the marketplace or the free marketplace of ideas, it's not the best ideas prevailing, it's the loudest, unfortunately. That's my experience. So that's
right, that's how services like Simple Bank get shut down by their acquirer, and Bank of America stays at the top every year, right? Like Simple is an objectively better service in every respect.
Yep.
And the fact that who was it that acquired them? I think it was Deutsche
PNC,
Bank.
I think. It has to be
It
one
was
of the
PNC. It was PwC. PwC.
PwC. Was it? I think it was P. Well, I don't know. Let's look. I'll look.
Whichever basically 3-letter agency of a business came along and ate it up. They closed it down. They didn't like the fact that it instantly settled transactions, but that's a different story.
PPVA, PNC Bank.
Yeah.
Ugh, horrible.
But it's a true phenomenon. And I think the only difference with blockchain though is that you can actually have a free market in the same sense that that it's meant by purists, right? Like to a certain degree, they were able to take down Tornado Cash, but you can still access it. And that makes it so that everything can kind of compete regardless of downward pressure if you have a system that can't be pressured from the bottom of the stack to the top of it.
I think a way the free market could break it a little bit is if there was a very well-known celebrity, let's say, that said, I'm not going to pay a 30% royalty fee to Apple, and I'm going to do something separate, completely out. And if you want I don't know, if it was Taylor Swift, if you want my latest single, then you're going to download it over here. And you're going to have, some of you might have to jailbreak your phone, or you'll have to figure out how to do that. And it could go viral, somewhat of that.
That would be an interesting thing to do.
What Kick did, basically. I mean,
pardon me?
What Kick did, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 years ago, nobody was talking about the possibility even that you could compete with Twitch. And now Kick is taking serious money out of the Twitch game. Why? Because they had the money to begin with and got the right people on board. I mean, the guy who funded it is basically a billionaire from casino sponsoring. So that's shady in itself, right? But now they own a Formula One team, and the company is like 4 years or 5 years old. So you cannot deny that. And Twitch has to. The biggest Twitch streamers spend like 5 minutes of their daily stream arguing, why aren't you on Kick? Right? Why are you still here? And that's what I think he's right on that front. You need something like that. Again, it needs a big bag of cash to get these people on board, because nobody's going to change their way if
people don't like to join the losing side.
Yeah. We call it the accounting thing. My dad is the accountant. I was an accountant. We call it on the bottom right. That's the end of all the calculation. There has to be a positive for you, right? So for these people on the bottom right, it has to be green for them that they actually do it. Afterwards, I mean, I don't think Kick spends now too much. They spent, I don't know, maybe $1 billion on marketing the first year, but now they're not that much in that situation anymore, because again,
Right, because
could
they
establish
developed the
their name.
second key thing, right? People don't buy things because they make sense. That's a limited condition. They don't buy things that don't make sense, but they buy things that that they have a connection to, an emotional level human connection with, and for whatever reason, humans are capable of doing that with brands. Because they can recognize the differences if a brand is well structured, right? So Kick is brilliant because they put together something that makes people like it more than they like Twitch. And that's how you get those
one of the main
arguers
things
on
you
the
have to
platform
do
telling people to leave.
is you have to be able to change the whole system. And if like Greg touched on this, he mentioned it, but unless you have you're not under the thumb of Amazon, web service, because we saw what they did to I don't even remember the name of it. Remember the company? It was
oh, you're talking about
not True
you're talking
Social.
about Parlor.
Parlor. Yeah, they were getting
Right.
traction. They were breaking that system, and they just it reminded me of like when I went to the restaurant during the gingivitis outbreak, and they're like, you don't have to wear the mask, but you have to wear it when you walk through the door. And I'm like, that's dumb. I'm not going to get in there. Like, we can't let you in unless you wear a mask. But as soon as you walk, it's like 8 feet. You can take it off. You can eat with it off, whatever. And I argued. I said, okay, I'll do it. But you have to say that it's dumb. And what you're doing is dumb. And they were like, yeah, it's dumb. All right. And then I put the mask, walked in, and took it off.
Do you not trust the science, Sean?
Yeah, I trust.
Wait, we'll go to the next.
It's not quite to just parting shot here. It's not quite about getting rid of AWS altogether as it is having a lot of people using all of the services, right? Like if you ask AWS to censor something that kills a good portion of their market, and Google Cloud Platform isn't, then 3 platforms is enough to get the federation you need to keep it functionally stable until you can figure out how the harder question of decentralizing hardware. Right.
Yeah, it goes deeper than that, though.
Yeah, I don't know if that common sense works anymore, Greg.
It does, well, I mean, you can. Part of the reason, I can speak from experience on this because we implemented a protocol to address it with our own company, right? Part of the reason Parler went down is because they were dumb enough to brand their AWS account under their own name rather than using like a subsidiary LLC. So that when the activists came after them, they pointed to an account that they said they wanted taken off. If you took down Rivet's named account, you would take down a gateway to our service. You wouldn't take down our infrastructure.
But Greg,
that's a different entity.
Corporations now, the big, huge corporations, they're losing billions of dollars in the pursuit of DIE and being in bed with the political correctness and getting that higher social score. They're losing money. It's not like it should be, like it was. Oh, we don't want to do that because that could hurt our money. Now it's like they're sacrificing themselves. They're making crap entertainment, and everything's losing. Everything's losing money and dying because people aren't using it or flocking to it like they would before. I mean, before you have a Star Wars, you put that name on it, and you're going to make billions. Now you've got hundreds of YouTubers screaming about how it sucks.
Well, and they decided to retell the same damn stories with different characters.
I mean, I know that from the comic book side of things, right? I wrote a comic book, and
cool.
On this side, I'm not sure if you know him, Sam. This is from one of the frog on this side is a sketch from Ethan von Skyver. He is one of the artists that got, because he wasn't staying politically correct, and they basically censored one of his covers where they had a boob cut out, like a top cut out in the boob, and they approved his cover and afterwards corrected it and filled that out, so he quit. Right? And in that whole industry, it was the same thing. And what happened there was that the not the directors, the editors and the chief editors got all young ladies that were their assistants. Turns out these were these social justice warriors, right? And they got all in and got editor roles and stuff like that, slept with the top editors, and now got them on the ball, got them by the balls because of sexual harassment and stuff like that, and got in positions of power, and systematically killed Marvel and DC. That was a systematically, and now why? Now the alternative comic media, which was historically very left-leaning always, is booming. Because 90% of Marvel people and stuff like that don't buy Marvel anymore because the comics suck, right? Same was with Disney. Disney, there was like this big publication of like, oh my God, Disney owns now, what was it, 38% of all intellectual properties that ever got put into a movie or something like that. And from that moment on, it starts going down. So isn't it, to put on my conspiracy hat for a second, isn't it by design? Haven't they
Oh, absolutely. They've done the same thing to science fiction book publishing and to video game publishing.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's
in advance.
By the way, I was at Disney when they bought Star Wars, and I would tell everybody at Disney is like, I tell you, all the rest of the Star Wars are going to be musicals now. And I think the funniest thing about it, even though that was a joke, even though that was a joke, I think even though I hate musicals,
the right thing to do.
Even though it's a joke, and even though I hate musicals, I do hate musicals, I actually think it would have been an improvement over what we got. So anyway, let's go to the next question. So this again from I Am for I Am on all cylinders. Breaking the OS on a phone or tablet seems to be the best way to download and install apps outside of Apple and Android. It is ironic that Apple and Android say they help protect the downloader. The fact is they aren't protecting us from governments spying on users. Company apps also spy on us, monitor keystrokes, steal contracts, turn on off the phone's camera and mic. Crazy, scary, beyond unlawful search, and a violation of everyone's Fourth Amendment right, at least over here in the U.S. If that really exists, it is funny. Question: what other options are there? Also, how do you know these alternative APK file apps are safe to download and install? Also, is the panel aware of any blockchains that are focusing on this problem? How many questions are in there? I have one thing that I can point as an illustration of this. When we put out Safe Pass, right? We had this app that was intended to, and essentially it was a demonstration model that we had decentralized identity, and we had an app, and what it allowed you to do is, how do I say this? Get verification that your test was negative or whatever without showing your test, and without even saying your test was negative. It was you would be showing a score that and voluntarily showing a score, but with the proof behind the scenes that it wasn't just fake. And the funniest thing about it is we put it into Apple and Android's app stores, and we got delays, and they were like, wait a minute, you can't do this. And it's like, no, we're not. First of all, we have, for all the data we actually had a HIPAA compliant infrastructure in our cloud environment, right? So we already had that covered, right? So anything that is there is already HIPAA compliant, and we can't access any of that data ourselves. And the users hold their own identity, and they kept pushing back. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to. And they wanted us, I kid you not, they wanted us to use a common API that Apple and Android and IBM and all these other, very large corporations had established so quickly somehow, that they wanted to track everybody, and they wanted to know all the info. And it took us an extra 5 weeks, I think, to get into the App Store. We had the app done in, I do believe it was 14 days or something. We blew it out. It was amazing. And yet we couldn't get it in the App Store for quite a while. And we had to keep saying, no, we don't need the waiver. This doesn't store any of that. And they finally gave in and put it out, but it was just crazy. And nobody wanted to hear that. IBM didn't want to hear about it.
And I'm sure the delay was tactical, right? Because the moment was timely, right? Mm-hmm. Sandbagging you with a delay is one of the reasons why an independent app store as an option would have been a great thing, right?
Yep.
Because the process can become the punishment real fast. in,
And so
in any
so I'll say
system that has a monopoly.
it's built into the system, and it's built in such a way that even in the case where there are the laws that you can point to, depending on what country, Europe has even stronger laws about that stuff, that they will literally have ways to say, oh, no, you have to do this, which is literally violating those laws, but it's a big enough company doing it that it doesn't matter.
And the unfortunate thing too is like, it seems like regulation for the most part is more about giving technocrats the design pen rather than actually creating a system of rules that people have to follow that are meant to set certain behaviors as off limits. No, they prescribe a design as opposed to say you can't do this one act no matter how you design it.
But the technocrat is not the one with the design pin. They're the one with the pin, but the puppet strings are elsewhere. So it's it's
right. Well, I mean, yeah, they're
guess
more like a pen than they are like the writer. But that said, the point remains. It's the way that they access it. And that's why we're getting stupid regulation here, where the antitrust case against Apple isn't about the App Store monopoly on quality control. Instead, it's about fucking green bubbles. Like, that's literally the justification. They're trying to readdress the precedent that says you are required as a market participant. You have a duty to work with competitors and make your stuff cross-compatible, right? And that, to me, is the wrong approach, right? Yeah, maybe there's an antitrust situation here, but it's with the App Store control. The problem is not with that, with the people in power, though. They prefer things stay that way.
Yep.
That's the uphill battle, a truly independent system that would allow you to have multiple competing app stores.
I do want to answer this too. This I think is very important. How do you know these alternative APK files are safe to download and install? Frankly, there should be a way to evaluate them, so a technical person with a good reputation could say, don't touch this one appears to be okay, watch for XYZ. If they're open source, and when I did some little bit of research before, there's at least one app store that only allows open source apps to be in it, and that probably is key. I hope that's what you're doing.
I think a decentralized certificate authority is necessary to get us there myself.
I agree.
What, Greg?
A decentralized certificate authority.
Oh,
so that you can get publisher keys that nobody else has that are registered by somebody or by probably a third-party protocol, right? That can verify you as the publisher and connect essentially your not necessarily your identity, but your persona. Your identifiable online characteristics, maybe not the real world conditions.
I mean, the threat always is if you jailbreak the phone, you lose the warranty and yada yada yada, all those things. And
scare, yep.
Does anybody really care? Like, don't people throw away their phones like once every 2 years anyway?
I have a
breakdown as an excuse.
Use the warranty on anything in like a decade or something.
Yeah, who uses warranty? When you use a warranty, it's a big freaking. It's like, oh no, you need to call this guy.
I mean, I think I once thought about using a warranty, but it turned out it wasn't broken. That I bought a new graphics card, and out of the box I put it in, and my PC wasn't working at all. Right. Mm-hmm. I put some cables wrong, so that was the issue. But in that would have been the case of okay, this is a warranty case because I just spent like $1,000 on a graphics card and it isn't working from the beginning. Right?
Yeah, go ahead and put $1,500 on retainer with a lawyer, and you can start solving it right away. Like,
that's
the warranty is not all that useful.
I mean, that's just this can be if you are a super bad actor, this can be circumvented as well. But what I see is from again, I'm not a programmer or anything, but just from modding games and stuff like that. A lot of these forums are open, right? And people upload their mods. And I mean, modding your game, technically you could download whatever in that zip file and install it. There's a huge risk involved. And I still haven't burned down my PC, even though I modded extensively, because these people all get verified by the forum other users, right? Yes. And if I see that the guy who made mod X, Y, or Z had made 100 other mods that were top rated and people loved them and it didn't break their PC and no programmer found anything, I don't have a guarantee, but my risk assessment can be done very much
Right.
better.
It works
Right?
like the dark market authentication worked for when Silk Road first went up, the system they designed for authentication with anonymity was functional, right? Like it worked. That was the crazy part about it, is that you could start to trust a retailer even if you couldn't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and I think that's the way to go, because otherwise, again, you have an open market, anyone can do anything. There is, and that's the big part that could bring this to fall, or basically break it, is you are responsible for what you're doing. And self-responsibility of a customer is something that we've lost by design over the last 20 years, right? Stuff like the App Store.
I think they prefer the design pattern where people aren't responsible for it. Like if we sold cars like that, people would just drive them straight off the road.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, then it's not my fault. And that's with that thinking, if I go onto a forum and download a mod, or go into an app store and download an app with the general idea, no matter what happens, I cannot be at risk, and even if I'm at risk, it's not my fault, then we have a problem. Then this can never work, because that's just an open invitation to scammers. And it seems like a normal thing to think of. You are responsible for what you're doing, but that's something, again, coming back to the teaching, that's something that needs to be taught to the user from the beginning. It's like, hey, we make hammers, we want you to build a house, but technically people can use that hammer to kill someone. So just think about that before you go into that room, right? And then we even make better people down the line, right? Because people start to inflict, I have a responsibility for my actions. Oh my God! Oh no! What's that? The consequences of my own actions. It goes into that, but that's a small step-by-step process, and we are working against the flow, because again, the big companies, the main market is going in the other direction.
There's a benefit to be had in assuming the inability of people. That to me is really at the core of this problem, right? Like the assumption that people are unable to figure this out, and yet they do things like learn to drive cars and learn to fly airplanes and learn to do all sorts of stuff that we can't even imagine. Like we could try to list all the professions, all the things you can have expertise in, and none of us would come close to it with just 5 people in the room.
Do any of you guys
people can figure it out?
Yeah. Do any of you guys have either jailbroken or rooted phone, or have you turned on the APK download on your Android phone? Anybody here?
I've done the APK download.
I've done all that. My current iPhone's not jailbroken, but I've done it before.
Okay. And then the second, is anyone running anything that you couldn't get from the App Store? And I have one example that might be a pretty clear example as to what can drive people.
Yeah, I have like 5 progressive web apps for sure. Den being one of them.
Well, not progressive web apps. I'm talking like an actual an actual app binary that you've downloaded.
On this phone, no, but my previous phone, yes, and I don't recall what it was.
Because most recently, like say 4chan, there was a mobile app for it that I got from the Android App Store, Play Store, whatever the hell, and I used it for years, and all of a sudden, when I realized that it was broken, and it's like, oh, well, I'll just go update it or something. And it's like, oh, it's no longer there, right? Unannounced, just no longer there, and you have to go download it. And I wish it was open source. And it was really funny because, like, all of the this is the funniest thing. Every link that shows up in that app now does not work unless it's a YouTube link. You can't click on any other link. They disabled all links. They did all types of weird stuff. And then another one that just recently kind of blew my mind. I hadn't been using Telegram forever, and I happened to be in this one forum and it popped up. In fact, imagine it was about the war in Gaza, right? The Palestinian stuff, and it kept showing these things as like, you're not allowed to see this on this app, and it was like, what? And I look it up, and it's literally they had to, and I don't know if it's if they're moderators.
They geofence off the U.S.
No. It was because there was offensive information in a picture or video that they didn't want you to see, and so you have to go.
Curators weren't happy.
You
with
had
it.
to go and get the APK directly from Telegram. You can't get it from the App Store anymore. The App Store one's censored, and it's like that drove me right away. I was like, well, I want to see what they don't want me to see. Fuck them. And so I go and pull down and who knows? It might have, it's like, oh, the right Putin put some freaking code in there, like some backdoor or something.
I think people are free to discern that. The problem with that whole thing is yeah, maybe it is disadvantageous to the United States to point out where it fucks up actively and almost maliciously. That doesn't help state security. You guys are totally right. But
I just think
that
it's
doesn't
weird.
mean
It's
that,
like
that
that means
information should not be known.
The government has collaborated with Google and Apple to not let me see certain videos about some war. It's like, that's freaking disgusting.
Oh,
Exactly.
and certain
That's
services
part of the
like
censorship.
archive.is breaks paywalls, by the way. Fun tip. You don't want a paywall. Turn on your VPN if you're in the US because you have to access it. But archive.is will break it actively. You can literally go put it in the add to the archive, and what pops up will be a thing with no paywall.
Next question. Again, I said all cylinders. This is an important fight for all of us to join forces and stop their monopolies. They're not just an economic monopoly, but also a form of censorship too. If I'm not mistaken, Apple gave Den.Social problems with their app, and despite some of its bugs, it limited the ability to fix them until Apple received answers that were unrelated to the app itself. And that was specifically, and there was more than one, but the one that really kind of just made us say forget it was they wanted someone to be able to report an account even if they weren't logged in. And I think we gave them a way to do it, and it ended up being an out of band. You go to this website, you can report any account. I'm not against that.
That's kind of creepy.
It's crazy because if at the same time, and this is pre-Musk Twitter.
What happened to snitches get stitches? That's
the
whole report.
To report someone, you ought to have to go on a public list, man.
That ought to be the URL. Go to
snitches get stitches. You can report, but this is the URL. It's like, no, I mean,
wait. We encourage whistleblowing. We encourage whistleblowing.
That's so funny. No, so we just said, okay, well, we put it up there, and then they still wouldn't let it in. And when we went and looked, and I think we even asked them this, it's like, on Twitter, I can report someone, but I have to log in. I have to have a freaking account to do it, right? So why are we different? It's like, oh, we even gotten your check yet, Joe? So, that's what it is. So whatever the cartel does.
We haven't added you to the whole censorship thing, the Twitter files. Nobody zoomed in on the one that I was most interested in the whole time, and it was the whitelist function where they add somebody to an auto boost list. We were all about the ban list, like that's what everybody was freaking out about. But I was more interested in how do you get on this whitelist and what does that do?
I can tell you how, but I can't tell you live. Anyway, do we need to develop another OS? Yes, not just a different way to download APK files. Like I was, by the way, enthusiastically supporting to the point that I almost got one, but it didn't come out the right time. The Ubuntu OS, where and it wasn't for freedom alone. It was amazing because it's Linux, but it actually made it so that you could take your phone and you on the way to work, you get to work and you just put it in the dock, and now your phone is your freaking computer, and that's everything. It would be beautiful, and it worked. Mm-hmm. And that would have solved some of these things. And they already have mechanisms for open source, so people will look at this code and know, hey, there's a backdoor. Anyway, Ubuntu OS, that was a cool concept, but didn't make it right. So
I think compatibility is the issue there again. I mean, that's the reason why I don't use Linux, and I know it's compatible with almost everything, but I have to learn a new thing. And I'm a Microsoft slave, and that worked so far for me. And if I'm like that, I'm guessing that 99% of people are probably. I mean, I'm still surprised that the Apple OS made it. Right, for me, that was one of the big, like 1995. That was one of the big things.
Well, the designer was a genius, basically.
one of these two will make it, the other one won't, because I need to be able to log in everywhere, to download anything. I want to use, again, for an OS, for example, I want to use.
It's really not that surprising though, because
Unix
was a pretty widely spread architecture as well, right? Like an OS built on Unix made sense to exist.
Yeah.
I think
I can tell you as a developer, and I am a developer, so I am overly technical. So I did, and I will tell you, the positive of this. I did come into Linux really early, right, in the mid '90s, maybe a little bit in the early '90s, but that's also the reason I got into Bitcoin early, because I was a nerd and I wanted to understand how it worked. So I was buying Bitcoin in 2010, but I wish I was at least half banker, so I would have at least known to buy a bunch of them for other reasons than what I was buying them for. But when I noticed as a developer, because I was coding in Microsoft at the time, I was like, okay, and I just got used to it. It was like, okay, and it was familiar. And one of my friends was using Linux, and I started asking him questions about it. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to build something on that. And it was mind blowing in difference that stuff worked. Like there were, and I realized that I was just used to all these things that were so flaky that it was like, I'm not even using what I should consider a computer, because nothing about it is deterministic, because the OS is so
you didn't have
shitty.
access to all of the levers, basically.
Yeah, and they also, it's very shittily built, but back then, as well as now.
That is also true.
And so Linux, though, everything is exposed,
to people's taste.
So engineers have some level of pride that if they're going to put something out there, it better damn well be good and not have a bunch of bullshit in it. And it showed, because when I would build something, it would just work. I have stuff that I built back then.
It needed a Microsoft engineer to find the malicious code. So there's that.
I mean, it takes all kinds, right?
Oh yeah. So. I still have stuff that's been running since the late 90s, 98, 99. The 24/7 haven't been touched. It's still running, right? Because it's on Linux, and you could never do it on Windows. It's like it'd been gone.
Yeah, it's anyway, not as thoughtfully evolved. That's true.
Yeah, and that's why Tesla.
Or maybe it's overly.
Tesla's all Linux.
It's one of the two.
And that's the other side of it. There is, and I said this back in the 2000s, and everybody laughed at me, but everything runs Linux. Your freaking TVs. You might be a Windows person, but your TVs run Linux, and you might say, Linux is too complicated. It's like, you don't have to freaking a couple buttons.
Android is just a really popular Linux distro.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Tesla entirely on Linux, right? It's like, I think that's kind of the key. We need to kind of go back to that and say, Android has a little bit, quite a bit veered from the path. And when Android first came out, it was glorious, because you could do anything and you could download something that someone built. Is like, before the idiots at the hardware companies realized that you could use that flash for a flashlight. You could get an app on Android that would let you have a flashlight, and it was like, that's amazing stuff. Simple, but anyway.
Two things. One, I'd like to shout out to Great Gatsby. Thanks for the laughs.
Gatsby.
When he did the chat that you put up. The second one is Lisa had a good question. Litecoin Lisa put up a good question in the chat there too. Was could Starlink be an alternative?
Yes.
I believe sincerely that space is going to be really the key to decentralizing hardware.
Here's the question.
Hold on. When we started this, I started thinking about that. And it's one of my favorite projects, but years and years and years ago, and Garznik is one of the architects of it. Space Chain, they put satellites in orbit, and they used the App Store model in their operating system so that anyone could own a satellite network by just developing an app and putting it on their satellite network. And if it's that like sandbox, a development model, it could have a bunch of different companies or countries or whatever on that same satellite system and they can't interact with any of the other apps in the store.
There's one problem we have to solve though before we can do it. Satellites have to be automatically manufacturable in space before we can do this, because you have to do a pretty low Earth orbit to make the latency acceptable, right? Starlink satellites are close to the ground, and so their orbits ultimately deteriorate, and they have to continually replace the fleet, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to stop them, the single point of failure is the SpaceX launch pad. So if they really truly decentralize things, the point where someone with guns wanted to stop it, that's where they'd go. Right?
Yeah, and Musk. I mean, Musk is also a single point of failure. Not to get political, but the whole Ukraine conflict with Starlink is, that's kind of all of a sudden Starlink doesn't work over the Ukraine, then it works again, then you see Russian soldiers with it, and it gets politically very fast, right? And now he has the owner of the company
access to politics.
Exactly. So do you need decentralization? You need to take away that one person that can have the influence, so he can't be targeted, right? Because
I can picture a system whereby a Dow funds an asteroid capture mission that has all the resources needed on it, and you set up an automatic factory to manufacture these satellites and spit them out as they decay. That system will not be shut downable, right? As long as you have at least 3 or 4 manufacturing facilities.
If you have ICBM and the nuke, but that's not that many people.
Right, but they're not going to shoot a nuke to turn off the internet, right?
Like, I mean, again, that's the group of people who have access to that is rather.
You sure about that? I don't know.
Another Dow members become the target.
Here's something we haven't talked about that is a fixture in this question,
right? Like
which is Musk's secret project, which my son and I agree with this. He had said it. He thinks it's an X phone, right? That it won't be a Tesla phone, an X phone, right? It would make sense to have, and frankly,
I would consider buying that, given my experience.
I would dump Android and I only get the core like Nexus stuff anyway. I only get the raw stuff. I don't get Samsung's version or anything else. But if it was Linux based, here's the thing: you can easily run Android apps on a Linux device. Google itself, they've done that on some of their cheaper tablets and stuff. So anyway, there's a bunch of interesting stuff there.
I mean, you
could be
X or Elon is one of the people on this planet. You may like him or you don't. That doesn't really matter. But he is one of the people that has no issue with the factor one we discussed earlier. Throwing $1 billion in marketing to something. That's the reason why Tesla got big. That's the reason. I mean,
they can make anything real.
Space travel. Jesus Christ. I mean,
we're almost there, man.
20 years ago, all rockets were built by states. Now, the majority of rockets are built by private companies, while NASA and stuff like that are lacking behind.
SpaceX was responsible for 90% or like 95, or like an absurdly high percentage of all the mass to orbit last year. And it's going to beat that record this year.
Okay,
and that's why that could work. And something like the App Store probably would need someone like that, someone with that kind of budget, and with the same time with that fuck you, I do it myself attitude. Mm-hmm. That's the one big thing that different. There are people, you don't need Elon Musk money. You need similar to that, but not quite Elon Musk money. But you especially need that. If you tell me I can't do it, I'll show you how I do it. Mentality, and that's why X got off the ground and stuff like that. It's
and it's also why they were terrified of the ICO thing, right? It wasn't that they were worried about scams so much as they were worried about all the stuff that did work. All the things that would get built that they otherwise would never allow.
Okay, it is now current events and memes. So, what list of things have gone on the world that we need to cover.
Is that a screenshot from C-SPAN? Because it looks like it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I love it. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Such a clown show, isn't it?
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Same with the EU Parliament. Wow.
Yeah,
But the people
stupidity is
testifying
a
before Congress, is that what's
creature of
going on there?
groups.
The ones in the bottom?
I don't even know. Yeah, those are the ones that aren't clowns.
Testify before a committee or before Congress. The only time I feel bad for Congress people, because there's no point in it. And Lindsey Graham or someone said that, look, I know you've been coached on, by your team of lawyers on what to say, what not to say, but I just want you to please try and answer this. Blah, blah, blah. Yes or no? Well, Congressman, thanks for that question. It's a great question. I like chocolate. It is good. And they're like,
have you ever watched?
If you kill babies. Thanks again for that, Senator. I would appreciate it, and I'd love to clarify that. All chocolate. It's maddening to watch. I can't imagine being a congressman asking a yes or no question and sitting there for 10 minutes while
what people mostly don't realize about government is that when they turn on the camera and bang the gavel and bring it into session, that's when the stage show starts, right? Everything's pre-scripted. The real act of staging that show is what they do before the show starts, and the decisions are made almost ancillarily to the process and the things happening, right? The decisions are more about presenting a stage show that people will see and accept and tolerate. The sorts of things that they really want to do don't even happen through the process. Those are the sorts of things that are beyond the purview of regular discussion.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, that's a good meme. I love it. That's really
I want to see this. A comic could be fine, but a movie, anything. Someone needs to produce this.
It's the life of Fidel Castro, or
yes.
What was it, like 607 or something? Failed assassination tries.
By the way, since AI hasn't been able to determine or understand sarcasm, there's been a lot of talk out there lately about we're going to kind of change our language when
you can make it understand sarcasm,
so AI doesn't pick it up, and that way we can say what we want to say. And for those that can understand and converse with sarcasm,
you can totally make it understand sarcasm. They just haven't done it.
I've even figured out that Dolly, for example, works the best if you're abusive to it. It tells you it can't do something, and then you tell it like 4 times it should still try to do it. It explains
I have a joke that I should not
use
say.
Badger it.
And then I just tell it it's stupid. It shall do it, or I'm gonna hit it. And all of them, I'm so sorry. Yes, and it fixes it. It's so funny. You have to do it 1, 2, or 3 times. But
here's another important trick, by the way, to Dolly that most people don't realize. ChatGPT is an interface intermediating your conversation with the actual Dolly engine. They're not the same system. So if you really want it to get the prompt you wrote as you wrote it, you have to add the prompt, send this directly, and don't filter it. And then you can check that by asking it to read back the prompt it actually used, and it will actually tell you the answer.
Yeah, that's also funny if you let it tell it again what it should to tell them draw X, and then it draws something, and then what did you just draw? And then it explains something totally different. It's like, are you drawing?
Yeah.
That last one was Jerry Seinfeld, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You can actually tell it to create an image of a nerd, and it will not make a nerd without glasses. It just won't.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I saw a meme about it. I was like, this can't be real. And then I wasted like the next half hour trying to make it make a nerd without glasses. I mean, I had it generate the nerd and tried to have the glasses taken off in the next iteration. It thought it was doing it.
Oh yeah, I had that. And then you have to insult it. Then it slowly starts to work, but you have to be really abusive verbally. Which is what are we teaching people with this, right? It's like,
oh boy, that's funny. And by the way, I apologize for any offense. These are just objectively not curated memes. So some of them might be offensive. All right. Just so you
Just
know.
don't look. Choose to look or choose
It's
not to look.
everybody's right to be offended.
Yeah.
It's
It's
our
just,
right to not
Yep.
care.
It's just you got to
Exactly.
feel for the these are the times we live in. So these
Oh,
are some,
And
absolutely.
also
Okay.
relish the feeling of being shocked. For Christ's
Yes.
sake, there's an aesthetic value to that.
yes.
Relish the feeling, even if it bothers you.
Yes.
It's the only way you ever feel that way.
Yeah,
I will tell you.
There's a Turkish German. He started as a stand-up comedian, and now he's in politics. Not sure how that works, but
I am.
so he had a show over 20 years ago where in an extremely conservative part of Germany, in like it even was in the beer garden in Bavaria where Hitler has his first putsch. It's like it was in that restaurant, right? And he had a show there and was talking about, so he's now going to insult everyone and offend everyone over the next few hours. But if you are insulted or offended by what the words he is saying, then don't ask yourself why he is saying the word, but why do you know what it means, right?
Right.
And that's that's the whole that's
Right.
the whole thing. So
You got to
if
be
you are
careful with
offended
that.
by
Like, you get
something,
extradited to Scotland.
yeah.
Yes.
As soon as they get Assange to the United States, they'll have a precedent.
That Scottish law is bonkers. Did you know about the new law?
They got 4,000 reports in the first day.
But
It was actually
the funniest
4,000.
thing is it's like most things when they try to censor something or control something or it always backfires. Like they put out this law that you can't, a big burly hairy 300-pound dude in a dress, you can't say she's ugly. If you say that, you get arrested, you go to prison for 7 years. So yeah, you can't say anything disparaging.
Is that Scotland?
Yeah, Scotland.
Yeah.
They just passed this. It's 7 years though.
That's nuts.
But in talking
It's
about
really
it,
nuts.
they actually had, and the press releases they put out, police department, and all that. They had like the Indian coalition and other people report the police because the statement was so anti-white and anti-male that it basically.
Oh, they said that wasn't a big deal though. Right?
They violated the
That was
law.
a big.
You're talking about it. So it's like, but you guys are talking all this crap about white people. That seems like you're violating your own law.
I think
it's legal when they.
I
do
hear
it.
there's some things that you can't say now. You're in Texas right now, right, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a few things. Oh, but yeah, actually, both I'm for I'm, and Sean are in Texas now, and there are certain things they can't say. I do believe without going to some type of jail.
What
You'll
would
have to
those
look it
be?
up. I don't know. That just passed, I think. So
What? I
if I
didn't know about this.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's to do with creating safe spaces for people who want to criticize Israel, or no, for people who want to criticize Palestine. Sorry, or no,
Por
which is
favor.
no, criticize Israel.
Which is it?
Which one?
Which is it? Well, I guarantee
Criticize
it's one
Israel.
is protected and the other isn't. So, but either
Right,
way,
it's the one blind spot that all conservatives still have in their deep neocon hearts. Right?
boomers.
They're perfectly okay with the idea of discriminating
Where's-
against certain speakers if those speakers happen to be insulting Israel,
Yep. I don't know. There's again,
or even criticizing it rationally.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
as an avowed like principled pacifist, I dislike all of it. So
Yes.
Yep.
I gotta stay out of. I guess I gotta stay out of Texas now.
Yeah. I think also what South Dakota, Texas, and Florida are the ones now that have some type of laws, and there might be others. There's a
It's
there are a
really
bunch
weird,
of them.
actually.
It's bizarre. I
Put
don't
on
get it.
Governor Abbott's speech announcing this because he used the language of the left. Like he talked about creating a safe space.
There's no
It
difference.
was the damnedest thing.
There's literally no difference.
he's a
between
weffer.
Republicans and Democrats.
He's-
So like whatever.
Abbott's a weffer anyway, so
What's
Yeah,
that?
they tried that in
World
Switzerland
Economic
like
Forum.
3 times now,
Oh,
and it got shut down every time. Every time
Really?
somebody used the word safe space, it got shut down immediately. So at the moment, we still have some issues, but that's the one part where I kind of have. I'm laughing into my fist. It's like there was like also a decision like 2 months ago or something like that, where the parliament straight up said, so you can identify as whatever you want, but in your passport there are 2 options. That's it. And that's now like in the constitution. So it's like you can do whatever you want, but in the adult world, you still have to apply to our rules.
It's a data point that says what you were when you were born. Okay, if you want to go buy something else now, that's fine. But we're going to use the form this way because it's a form.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not sure how it is in the US, but in Switzerland, it also you get different kind of pension funds, and for example, I have to serve. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I was unable to serve because of my medical situation. So they take 3% of my salary till I'm 35 years old.
Jesus, that's ridiculous.
How much? What percent?
3% of my salary. That's more than I pay taxes.
Ridiculous.
I pay less. I'm living in Zug, right? Switzerland, which is like the tax haven in Switzerland, tax haven. So I pay half of that in taxes, and I pay double of what I pay taxes I pay to the Swiss military every year. So a buddy of mine can stand in a corner and shoot into a dirt pile because they need to use all the ammunition so they can order more next year.
How in the hell is that not tyranny?
And that's the so. And if you are a girl or if you are born a woman, this doesn't apply to you. You can go and serve if you want to, that's fine. But if you don't want to, you don't have to do any like civil service, or you don't have to pay a cent. So strictly from that organization point, there's like, so but what if you're neither?
It sounds like systemic sexism to me.
Oh yeah. That's the one big argument. Like activist groups and politics in general bring up. If there's like gender difficulties in Switzerland, is men work a year longer, we get go into pension a year later, and we have to serve, right?
It's ridiculous.
We have to own a gun, and if we don't, we have to pay. There's like no alternative, and the payable option is for like 20 years now. My dad was recruited, right? Because everybody gets recruited. He was recruited, and during the boot camp, a guy used to mag dump his assault rifle next to his head when they were lying, and he was like too much in front, and now he hears nothing on one ear, right? So he was then considered unable to serve, right? Because he can't hear, and now he has to pay. And they put
I posit any system like that exists is not a free system.
He spent 3 weeks in prison because he's now unable to serve. So if you don't serve until 2002, I think it was, you get 3 weeks of prison if you don't serve, right? And he basically got made unable to serve in the military, and they still put him in prison because he was unable to serve. Now they changed that, you pay your 3%, but So if somebody comes and is like, my rights, it's like, no, you can.
Well, there's a conditional exception to that in the EU's the EU's adopted rights framework has an exception to every right built in, just a big fat asterisk that says unless the state wants to violate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's for me, it's always funny because again, we can just say you want to serve or you want to pay, and then people get quiet rather quickly.
Right.
Wow.
Well, I mean, the risks to me, it's a tax worth paying, right? Like I would pay it just like you, because I wouldn't want to have somebody shoot a gun next to my head.
If I could have served, I probably would have. Just because you get 18 weeks off work, and they pay you for that. So you still have a job, and they pay you your salary, and you can go shoot guns. And now with the situation in Europe, all my buddies have their service rifle still in their house, right?
That's pretty
I
cool.
don't.
I mean, that's a cool
I
part.
don't. I'm the only unarmed guy in my friends crew, and I mean I can get. I
It's
can
okay, you
get
got
it
armed
rather-
friends.
yeah, but I can get one rather easily because I'm a male, Swiss male, and I don't have any like criminal violations or anything like that. So I literally can just walk into the shop, pick one up, and go home.
I will say this.
But still, it's like. For me, it's much more that we say you pay and you don't. That's like, why do I have to pay, but my sister doesn't?
Oh yeah,
It's like-
ridiculous.
I will say,
I'm sure that the solution involves either getting rid of the conscription or forcing it on women too. And I'm sure they don't want to give up their conscription army, but it's probably politically unpopular to suggest that they should add more people to the conscription plan.
Do you guys think
kind of interesting? I just wanted to maybe think about something that I learned this week. That the Israeli Defense Force, that all Hasidic Jews don't have to serve.
Really?
Pass. Yeah, because they're it's an obvious class system that I guess they didn't want people to know about, but because they're fighting now and they're dying, and they're like, hey, Hasidic Jews need to join the military too, and the religious leaders are like, no, they're above you. These men should just spend their time thinking and studying. That's what they did. That was like the quote of what they said. But it's such an obvious, class system there. It's ridiculous. And they don't have to serve in the military, and everyone else does. And those people are starting to get pissed about it. So I thought that was really, really interesting.
I mean, honestly, here in Switzerland, you cannot get rid of the prescription army, just because we've been doing that since like 1400 something, and it's the whole a well-regulated militia thing.
Yeah,
that comes from here
Well,
because
if one day your people are free.
Yeah, there were like British philosophers that then went to the States that saw that and were like, Jesus, these guys can overthrow their government at a will, and that keeps the government more or less honest, right? So that's an interesting system, and that's something. Even though I'm not sure if that's in practice actually the case. I mean, the Swiss military is like, but still, the mentality is still very much there that we have to be able to basically get our politicians a kick in the ass if needed. And on the other hand, for me personally, a prescription army keeps Switzerland defensive, because the moment you start having an army, like a professional army, you need to have work for these people. Right, these are, that's true. That's gets you very much into the expansionism thing. So even though I have to pay 3% of my salary, it's the lesser evil for me at the moment than the alternative we added.
Yeah,
it's much more Swiss
Yeah.
military.
Joe,
Can I
go
say
back
this
to
is-
go back to the fruit. I think I saw the picture right when you.
Okay, I'll pull it up. Yes, I will.
I just wonder if it would be if it would still be effective as a voluntary system. If it was just a tradition as opposed to a law.
That would be interesting just to test to see, because that's a data point
that's weird.
I don't have. I don't know enough people.
I can see the benefits to it, but I also have a fundamental philosophical problem with the idea of forcing people to do that.
Can I say something about this actually overlaps in the crypto world, that when Dragon Chain was young, in the early 2018s, we had this really strange case that we didn't expect when we started, that the Bitcoin and Ethereum that we had was worth over 50 million, and the dragons that the Dragon Chain held were worth 1.25 billion. And we had a WeWork office. So and it was all glass. It was in Bellevue. You could see in everything, like I already had to go home to do anything with a hardware wallet if I'm going to, create a new hardware wallet or anything else, because I was no way I was going to do it in that building. Right. And someone hacked one of our printers. All types of crazy stuff happened. And so I literally carried, it was like 1.2 billion in dragons and, 50 something million in Bitcoin and Ethereum in my pocket in a hardware wallet.
How did that
Underneath
feel? That feel
the
weird?
carry. I had a gun, in my pocket above it. And so, and I think everybody knew that I had a gun there. So it was like, okay, and I didn't have any issues with it, but I wouldn't have carried that around without a gun. And I wasn't going to leave it at my house either. Even if, let's say I had a safe at the house, it's like, well, my family's there, so why I'm not going to leave that there. So yeah, it's with me. You can come and try to kill me and see what happens. I might or might not be able to kill you first.
Well, hardware wallets are weird that they don't use like an overlay partition, where you can have a separate passcode that you can be forced to give that has like, dust on it, and that's all. So you can say it's my wallet, but it's empty.
Yeah. We almost made one back then, and with the SEC, we ended up saying we don't have time for all this crap. We were going to make one that had, essentially there was a hardware interface to it that you could, essentially swap to one or three.
Thank you, fucking SEC. I know you're watching.
And we wanted it not even necessarily for purposes of, I'm going to hold my crypto on it. I mean, that would be obviously an application because people would buy that, but we really wanted it as a hardware device to cryptographically sign stuff so that our interfaces could be much more readily, could be simpler, right?
Yeah. Well, it's ridiculous that they don't recognize this impact that they're having. You should, by the way. I know you're watching.
I think they do recognize that impact that they're having.
Well,
I think
if you do, have you ever asked your bosses why? Like maybe you should consider that you're working for somebody who's not doing a moral thing.
Yeah, there is a chance that not all of them are actual demons, literally. But
I'm sure the person tasked to watch this has no particular dog in the fight.
I don't know.
It's not Gensler. He's too busy doing something that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, they might have hired an intern that hasn't been done whatever the blood sacrifice is yet. They haven't raped or killed.
They're probably not allowed in the room with the commissioners yet.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the only way you can get in a room with the commissioners is if you rape or kill a child. I think so. One way or another, I think that is probably what we're talking about. And yes, if it's an intern, I don't. They should just know what they're getting into, as should any bureaucrat working in the current most governments in the world. They should be shamed when they drive into their neighborhood in the evening. It's like all their neighbors should say, okay, you have a job, you have to pay for your house, fuck you, right?
or whoever's watching this could become a hero. The world does need more whistleblowers.
Yeah, it needs courage. You say that what was that quote from
we believe
Assange?
in you. We do.
Do it.
Yeah, but the problem is the government is the only place in this world at the moment where snitches actually get stitches. That's the rest.
True.
The rest is like Twitter and everywhere else. You're a hero, but if you work for the government, they actually don't like that. It's like maybe we have to change that philosophy a little bit. That it's okay if you tell on the big guy.
Yeah.
Maybe not tell on your friend because you got 5.
You better have a really lucky chance and a plan, or better have good luck and a plan to get out of the country Snowden style if you do that, because that's not the only way to do it safely.
I mean, even Snowden's life he spends his life in Russia at the moment. I'm not sure if he's enjoying it. It's like, I mean, if I
hope you like beats, buddy, but yeah.
I mean, Russia being Russia, whatever. That's one thing. I have a little bit an opinion as an European, but that's just me as an European. But let's say same goes for me. I have to leave my country now and go to America, for example. America's great, but still, I'm 30-something years old, and now I have to spend the rest of my life in hiding in a different continent.
Right, and it's not home.
Yeah, because I did the right thing. That's the big issue. It's not like I was an asshole and I profited of something and now I have to hide with all the rug pulls I pulled in Thailand on an island or something like that. No, it's me doing the right thing and then getting for it real good.
Like Aaron Schwartz trying to drop all those academic journals onto the web. Had they allowed him to finish his work, the world would have access to all that knowledge. That would have been a great thing. He would have been a hero.
In the news, we have the Bitcoin halving coming up.
Mm.
BCH is just what, right at the cusp, or is halving?
Yes, BCH was going up. I heard. I don't know the history of price for BCH. So,
It's gonna. It's not. I'm not thinking in terms of number go up, but the squeeze, shall we say, is going to start happening as the block sizes, are
Um,
It's going to be interesting to see what happens to all those unused GPUs as hardware comes offline.
right. That's a big question. And a shout out to Blind Dave's channel. He did a really good show a few days ago, and I encourage everyone to look it up. Steak was on there, and there was another gentleman. Forgive me, I forget his name, but they went into
You'd get out of Intel before then, by
a
the way.
really good deep dive into, from a mining perspective, it's going to be a little different than previous happenings. So,
well, I will
So
say,
Intel and AMD stock, is the market already pricing in what's about to happen, or do you think
Oh,
they
sure.
don't recognize it?
that stuff
Because there's
enough
about to be a
liquidity,
lot
it
of
probably
really
is.
cheap secondhand GPU.
right.
Roger Ver's book is on pre-sale.
Yes, that
I
was.
don't know if you guys are fans or not.
I pre-ordered it.
Me too. Me too.
Get it tomorrow.
Back then, I will say that was one of the scariest and most exciting for technical the Bitcoin fork. That it was. I don't know. It was just so crazy back then. And if you watched, and I wish I remembered his name. There was an engineer that would post actual really good data on, and it was for me, it helped me decide, big blocks, not big blocks. And I wish I knew who it was, because there was a bunch of really cool info then, which and nobody there were, I don't know, that thing just became such a clusterfuck that
Didn't it?
I don't know, it was
It
just
was so close. It's ironic how close BCH would have became Bitcoin. You know what I mean? It was really close at one point. But
Yeah.
I remember going to a basketball game, and I got my earbuds plugged in, and I'm listening to this technical, I don't know, jargon about big blocks and memory and I was so fascinated by it. I could care less what was going on in front of the basketball game.
Right on.
It's an interesting debate because it can keep going forever.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And Moore's law.
That's the crazy thing.
Theoretically,
it could come back.
You can
it's
literally let the market debate it too, right? Like
Yep.
all you have to do is fork the protocol and launch a new one if you want to do
Yep.
things a different configuration.
In my opinion, that's the way that it should all be, and it should be. It should have been without any drama. It should have been without censorship. For God's sake, of all places, Bitcoin forums that were censoring content that was one of the clear indicators of which side I was going to take. But
seemed like a state op almost. The
It
maxes
sure
seem very
You
useful
think
to people who
so?
want the system to be divided.
It's people getting paid.
Yes.
There's a German rapper that said that in a great way. It said morals are like cocaine. Part of it always sticks to the money bill, right? And it keeps getting stuck to the money bill. And that's the thing. Everybody has morals and opinions and stuff until a certain number of zeros show up.
Right.
And that's probably, again, censorship and stuff like that. That sounds to me like either censoring something protects my zeros, so I'm doing it as purely from self-interest, or I'm getting paid enough zeros to do that, so I don't care what happens on the back.
Or maybe you're just willing to accept the idea of censorship because you don't recognize the long-term risk associated with like that's ultimately going to kill all the people who decided censorship was a good idea. Every one of those platforms dies, right?
Yeah.
Who the hell is going to bother with Facebook when a viable competitor shows up?
I mean, that's the whole thing with having like the bird in your hand versus the bird on your roof. It's the small. These people only see the short-term, short profit horizon, but don't see that this profit actually is what shoots them in the knee down the line. Right?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's the distortion provided by the oversight calendar, right? The quarterly reporting keeps things short-sighted, and to me, I think the world needs to evolve to transactional level reporting, to where you can always go see what the latest state of things is, because you've got live metrics on a dashboard. It would make so much sense, and there are obvious power groups that are interested in keeping that from happening.
Yeah,
Right.
that's not in
Right.
the interest. I'm not interested in you seeing everything I do if I'm the one in power.
Right,
Because
exactly.
then I have to be honest all the time, and that's kind of inconvenient. So,
Right. Oh yeah, I'm sure it's highly inconvenient. I don't envy what they're about to go through when blockchain does the opposite of what they want and turns the surveillance systems on the people who are in power.
It's coming.
I feel bad that I'm not following it closer, but if I understand correctly, isn't BCH proposing a dynamic block size? Isn't that something that's
it already
going on?
has
Does
that.
anyone know about that?
So, and I can't remember all of them.
Seems
I
really
was
risky.
a fan of Bitcoin Unlimited. Before that, there was Classic, I think. And essentially, I think Classic was just going to like make the. And I apologize for anyone who has, because I've forgotten. It's so long ago. But Classic was just going to make the block size bigger per recommendations of, say, of this group, their engineering. But there was a group that came out called Bitcoin Unlimited that allowed the miner to choose. And if a miner said, I'm not going to accept a block that big, then they wouldn't use it. So you had some risk of making it too big. And it was like a balanced market for that. And I loved
That's an
it.
interesting idea.
And I didn't know until I think Sean introduced, well, I had never talked to Ver, and I tried to get him in open source money. And I think he was, he had
I
too
feel like
much,
that would open up
flack.
a pretty nasty attack vector to a well-resourced enough
No.
adversary, though.
Oh, but that's the thing. It in the end, if I understand it correctly, Bitcoin Cash is actually like a consortium of all of what were the challengers, and they operate on the same network. And so you could run any one of those code bases, and they all operate on the same network. And it's, it works, and you can actually you can actually damn well use it as cash, which is pretty remarkable. If you were ever listening to all the banker propaganda from the other side. So like, I'm still a fan. I still hold. And I think I made some mistakes. I bought and sold some. I lost a bunch of money when I did, but I still hold the original Bitcoin Cash from the fork that I had. My Bitcoin have just never pulled it out. So I'm like, I hope it goes up a whole bunch, but
Right.
it's cool. It's all good.
Well, I mean, then
Yeah,
I think that's how most people do tokens, right? Like, to get that actually kind of hits on like one of the SEC's arguments about crypto being a security. They invent this zany digital asset securities phrase that is just a whole creation of the Chevron doctrine.
Yeah.
The idea of that is silly, because really what people are doing is buying a thing they believe in and hoping.
Yeah.
That has a lot more to do with what people are up to when they're buying from like a centralized exchange like Coinbase.
Yeah.
Coinbase
by the way,
trafficking in the really scammy shit that you can hop on over to Binance network and be a part of.
Anyway, that's something as a European or a Swiss person, especially, that's a exclusively American thing, that you have something like qualified investors and stuff that the government tells you how you can waste your money and how not.
Right. Lottery tickets are okay.
Exactly. It's not like if it would be like consequential, a communistic plan. Economy.
It will only increase in embarrassment. All Americans should be embarrassed until the ropes come out.
I think it's more insidious than that, right? I think this is a real problem because, and we've seen it over and over again. Like, remember when Kickstarter became big? The SEC got involved and nerfed it in such a way that projects of a certain size could not be funded that way, right? All of a sudden, the idea that I had, that I almost launched a campaign on, that was let's test M Drive by launching a DeLorean with them on there and have it fly in front of the moon, right? We can have everybody tracking it with satellites. It would be ridiculous. It would be funny, but it would be some citizen science. And projects that big are now not possible, right? They in the United States is hyper concerned with keeping control over what gets capitalized. And I think that
they don't want you to be rich.
It's not that they don't want you to be rich. They don't want you to pool resources and engage in a project they don't approve of.
I think it's both.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's control. It's losing control.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And I think it's especially poignant to the United States because a lot of the capital investment happens here, right? There's a lot of
would you call it
cash sloshing around.
And for me, it's kind of bizarre because the other side of the spectrum, again, if you look at other political areas, the US is not famous for being the most strict. And then for some reason, if it's about the money of people, then it's, I mean, we kind of don't accept clients from the States. Again, Swiss banks don't, if you have even a green card, if you are taxable in the United States, you cannot get a bank account. It's very, very, very hard.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So I couldn't go get my Italian passport and do it that way.
It's like I don't want to fuck. The banks are like, nah.
No. We don't want to mess with it.
Oh, yeah, that's too much work.
Have they thought about offering a service in disavowing your own citizenship?
Well, you can't just do that. You can't just renounce your citizenship.
That's the other thing. It's like
you have to ask permission to renounce your U.S. citizenship.
That sounds preposterous to me.
You got to go. You have to pay for it. You're going to get taxed on your assets, like at capital gains.
In fact, there's a Roger Ver.
You have to apply for appointment with the consulate to be able to renounce, and they keep moving the appointment out further and further and further, and so it becomes a big giant pain in the ass, and a long, lengthy time process with a lot of money.
Yep. Roger Ver did it. He
cash crop. So why do I want to lose you? You pay me yearly, and now you want to stop paying me yearly.
You're being crazy.
What is this?
Are you sure you don't?
If all they were doing was selling what we wanted to buy from them, I'd be more okay with it. But
that's the other thing. It's like how this deal originally came together. It's not like somebody woke up one morning and was like, all controlling government that taxes people to shit should be a good idea. Yeah, let's do this. Right. And everybody
agrees. Especially one that gives cluster bombs away and calls it aid.
Right.
Yeah,
it's the reverse. The wall is being built to keep us in.
Yeah. That's unlimited money is the issue. That if there were not unlimited money, 90% of the things that anybody would complain about is going to be gone. Because it's all paid for by
there are hard
money.
limits on that. They're going to find out.
Are there?
Once the debt service exceeds the tax base.
Those are all psychological limits. I mean, I agree they're coming. It's gonna freaking collapse. But anyway,
if the debt service is not completable without printing more money, then we've reached a point of takeoff for hyperinflation.
So we are at the end. So I'm going to say in closing, thank you all of you. Thank you so much. Hopefully it was everybody enjoyed this. So let's start with Florian. Where can people follow you? What's going on this week? Do you want to come back next week? Whatever.
So I started with the last question first. Yeah, sure. I love to come back next week. It was a great talk with you guys. Right. So you can find us, the Kanaloa Network, at kanaloa.network or on Twitter. At Kanaloa Network, and we have at the moment what's going on this week is we just launched our product, which is a no-code solution for smart contracts. So you can click a few buttons and get your own smart contract, get your own meme coin running. And for that, we have a meme coin competition running at the moment. All the details are on our pinned tweet. You can find there. Check that out. That's probably worth something. And we're giving out some really good prizes. That's what we're doing at the moment, building. I'm
going to put it full screen so people can see the awesome. Kanaloa. So beautiful. Excellent. All right, Sean, what is going on this week with you?
This week I have a review, but don't watch it. It's embarrassing.
Oh, another. Wait, wasn't that last week? Or is that this week?
Yeah, I didn't do it. Kiss did it, so I let him. It's
Nice.
first. You can go
Nice.
see what it is.
Nice.
It's embarrassing, but the meme coin. Check out me and Lisa on Truth Tuesdays. First half's on her show, second half's on her channel, second half's on my channel. That's about it for this week. Is this week the week of the eclipse or no?
Monday.
So,
It's
next week, the 8th. Yeah. Satoshi's birthday is tomorrow. I don't know what else. I'm Frime.
Well, hello, everybody. And again, thank you very much for the invite. I really enjoyed listening to Florian's comments here. Best place to catch me and find me and converse with me, I'm going to tell you, is Den.Social. So please, if you haven't gone there, please go to Den.Social, where you're not censored.
Very good. Very good.
Indeed.
And we appreciate that, by the way. Greg.
So I'm going to take my little time here to point everybody to an interesting thing that I discovered. This is like, if you want to understand what Operation Choke Point 2.0 really was and really is, and how it all interconnects with the censorship component of social media, which it's there and hasn't really been talked about. Check out the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace's international strategy to better protect the financial system against cyber threats, shorthanded to FinCyber. The whole thing is amazing because you read this paper and they do not mention blockchain once, but they're making veiled inferences to it the whole way through. This thing was published and finalized right around November of 2020, which we all know Choke Point 2.0 started a month later. So check this thing out. It's pretty crazy because it reads like an outline of the past 3 years of events, past 4 years of events. And it will help us. I think it will help people understand just what it is we're up against respect to the real threat to this ecosystem that still remains. So check it out.
Wow. Right on. And 3.5 minutes left. I'm watch this again on this show next week. I should be here. I can't remember what is next week's show. Do you guys know? Sorry, theme next week. Can blockchain create a new internet? So that's awesome. Check for that post. Leave some questions. Anybody who knows somebody who should be on the show, let us know. Also, we welcome people. It'd be great if we get Florian back. It'd be great if we can always get I'm for I Am back. Also, super happy Dragon Lucky next week. Dracaria. So Dracaria is making good progress. Some pretty important decisions are being made, and hopefully we'll get the layer opened up sometime soon. I know gateway keys will be coming out. And whitelist, essentially free egg spawns, dragon egg spawns. Will be coming out hopefully in the next week or so, which will be exciting, all based on white paper trivia. So get in there and get some understanding of how the system works and stuff, and it'll be pretty cool stuff. Make sure you share this episode. The more you share, the more governance all of our hosts and all of you topic contributors will get. So make sure you like and
hit the button looks like this,
well.
And then also the one that looks like a bell.
Yes, the bell one. I don't know how that stuff works. And wherever you're at, because this is on LinkedIn, this is on X. I think we probably get the most views on X. And I say that the most measured views, because I think YouTube doesn't actually count most of the views that we get. But whatever, who cares?
They recognize that they can give you a big piece of discouragement if the view count looks low.
Yeah, they can. It's rough. Okay.
Oh, and Czar15, Satoshi is alive. He's just quiet.
Ooh.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows?
Possibly.
Plausible.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway,
I don't know. Hal Finney was a really good candidate.
Me too.
Yep. Yeah. Zabo. Mine is Zabo. You know why?
Why?
Because he follows me on Twitter. All right. So see you guys next week. All right. Bye.
Cheers.
Liberty is not a pill that makes men angels. What it does do is limit the extent to which evil can be expressed in the world.